No, no, no. Boy, you are so late. Okay. So years ago, in a room of about 200 people, people were instructed to go stand next to the person that they wanted to learn from. And what happened was something very unusual. In the beginning, there were 4 or 5 people that people wanted to learn from, but the longest line was in front of Tim, and then all the people who people wanted to learn from went and got Tim's line. So pretty soon, there were 200 people in line to talk to Tim. And he's not the usual kind of hero like that. He has not got an ego, I don't think, because he's not promoting himself. He doesn't have an agenda of self-aggrandizement. He's just such a pure, open, loving soul. And what he does for work in the world is really unusual too, because he works for a large company called Parsons. I think it has 10,000 employees, or did at one time. And at one time it was in weaponry, wasn't it, or in war products, and then it moved into peace products. And Tim now manages 28 managers. He is the vice president of Parsons, and he is the head of engineering, and it is an engineering firm, so this is interesting. He showed me on his computer screen one of the projects that one of his managers is doing. And I probably don't have the numbers just right, but he showed me some huge, the drums. There were 30,000 gallon drums, and there were about 50 of them, as I remember, of deadly nerve gas. One drop could wipe out this room, probably. And there were also a certain number of missiles. I think it was like 60 armed missiles with this nerve gas. And Parsons has the job of dismantling this. So how do you even begin to take this apart? And he showed me the structures that they were building, and that the suits that were like these big silver space suits that were glued shut so that not even one single drop could come through. And he explained to me that there are system requirements in every project that absolutely have to be met. And one of the system requirements in that project was that nobody is injured by this. So they build the structure about it. And this was an agreement between the Soviet Union and the United States to dismantle all this weaponry. So he manages these 28 managers, and I think they're very lucky because he cares about their mind, body, spirit, and complete balance in their lives. So he's always working with them to create this. And when I called him on the phone, I said, "What about Act 3, what should we do about that?" We sat down and just this stuff started pouring out of him. And that's why we're here tonight. So I want to give the microphone to somebody that I admire more than just about anybody in the world, Tim Piering.
Thank you very much, Diana. What an angel she is. I mean, if there's ever an incarnated angel, it's Diana. Tonight is a very important night for me. I spent the last 10 years in a corporation, and I have not really come out and spoken to a group like this in 10 years. And I dove in, and I've been working very hard on the corporation. That's my day job. My night job was just studying wisdom, Jungian depth psychology, Parsifal and the Holy Grail, the 7 books of the Masnavi, which is the Rumi books. And I did that at night and worked with groups of people. And I've done that for 10 years. So tonight is really a rite of passage for me. I'll work another maybe 1 or perhaps 2 years in the corporation, and then I will be out just doing what I really love, which is Act 3 and being with all you. And I'd say that these three tables here are my most favorite people in the world, with maybe the exception of Boyd. So, we live in this computer age, and everybody's virtual, and it's electronic. And there's something different about Act 3, and that's we're sitting down with people and we're connecting, which is what's missing. That's one piece. And when Diana called me, and we sat down and had lunch together, it was really like a match hitting dry tinder. I just went off. I have not stopped working on this every day. I mean, it is just a work of pleasure, a work of joy. And I think it resonates with all of us because we're at a point in time in our life where there's this huge opportunity. And what are the tools that we can carry in to this next phase? And what is the wisdom that we can share? Joseph Campbell has the hero's journey, and most of you are probably very familiar with it. It starts out with a call to adventure, and you meet with mentors, and over in here where there's tests and ordeals and so forth, we all go through that in life. And then you come back, the resurrected hero, and you return with something to share. And that something is wisdom. You bring it back to the tribe or the group. And all of us have been around and around on that. And it starts out with a call, and usually a stranger comes to town, or there's a crisis, or you receive a call, and I received a telephone call that launched me on the journey. I want to introduce the Ouroboros here. Like the hero's journey, the Ouroboros is an alchemical symbol of either a snake or a lizard eating its own tail. It's like eating itself in this wisdom that goes, and it goes around and around, just like the hero's journey goes around and around. And it's from this that we learn and move forward and share. Now, if you're like me, you wake up in Act 3, you go, oh my God, these kids are saying yes, sir, and yes, ma'am. And it's like, who are they saying that to? And you appreciate the subtle. You don't have to see music videos that are changing every 2 seconds. It's like a flower or a walk in nature. There's something about something beautiful about the subtle, something beautiful about silence. Life was fired at us point blank. I mean, and in Act 3, you turn around and you went, wow, what was all of that? And so what happens is there's a lot of unprocessed experiences, and it's time to recapitulate or to go back and work with those because they're full of gold nuggets. There's also some shadow in there. There's some lead in alchemical sense that needs to be turned to gold. And this is a time when all this can happen. And then the third point is the dreams and the unconscious and what is down there. When you're running, when you're in the middle of life and you're climbing those mountains and making that money and all of that, there's a lot of pressure on top of things. And in Act 3, this comes off, and what's down here comes up again. It bubbles up again. In dreams, in imagination, and sometimes in complexes for people, in neurosis and so forth. So every piece that's trapped, which can come up and be transformed and come into consciousness, makes you a larger person. Starry night. I love that image. So I'm sitting there with Diana, and she says, what do you think should be in Act 3? And I took out this napkin, and I just, like that, it just came out. And then I asked Diana, and she threw some in. And then later on, when I looked at it, I went, oh my gosh, this thing is organized in some way that I didn't realize when I wrote it all out. It all came out. So here's the first part of it. Let's call it our waking, working life. In Act 2, when you're climbing the mountain, making the money, and running the organization, it's about money and control and all. Act 3 now, we're looking at balance. How do we balance our body, mind, spirit, work, play, relationship? And body's really important now. How are we taking care of our bodies so that we can continue on for the next 30 years? Healthfully. There's a lot we can learn and do. So we support each other in that. The mind, 95% of the people have no clue of the nature of their mind. They're just completely pulled by desires and fears, going from one to the next, never really realizing who's in there looking at these. So the nature of the mind, and finally meaning, who am I now? Exploration into that, the inquiry into that. So that's kind of the waking, working life. Everybody in this room has certainly worked in this area, inspirational spiritual life, and that includes realization, self-realization awareness. Probably no more important topic you will ever approach in your entire lifetime than that. That sets the standard for the rest. But we are multidimensional beings. So we have this whole huge playground. We have bodies, and we have the unconscious, we have the psyche, all this to work with. It's like mastery is to be able to have all this bubble up and work with it joyfully. And at the same time, have the realization and inspiration. Inspiration in what? Poetry, art, music, the spoken word. Diana has really set fire in this. And then mentoring, being of service. How are we going to take our wisdom and share it? That's what's lacking in this society, in this culture. I lived in Okinawa for a year. The elders are revered. They're revered. They're sought after for advice and so forth. So that will change. It will change with Act 3, with this group. Now the piece that's missing is the unconscious and shadow. It's missing. It's been pushed down. Generally not thought too much about. For example, mortality. Coming to grips with your own mortality. Mortality is very strange the way in the United States we deal with it. And in our culture, very strange as compared to other cultures. So Act 3, that's an important thing to work on. Completion. Every time you complete something in your past, you free up more energy. More energy. You complete it. It's like the knots of negative energy or whatever are let loose, and you become more of what you can become. And then finally, and I just can't say enough about depth psychology and the work of Carl Jung and alchemy and anima and animus and dreams. Dreams are incredible, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit more tonight. So I introduced the Ouroboros. We're going to go around in each one of these topics, continually going deeper. Each one, around and around. It goes on and on and on. And it's like a Celtic knot, really. It's all linked. Inspiration feeds it all. Dreams feed it all. Realization feeds it all. So these are just some images that Diana and I have been thinking about that really display what this is about. And I'm telling you, it's forming. It's like we're at the edge of this thing and something else comes up and we step on it and into it. Something else comes up. You're right at the front end with us here. Rumi's poems are not well-trimmed Persian miniature gardens. Rather, they are more like paintings in the Turkoman style, full of abrupt movement, odd flowers and bushes, demons and talking animals. Now, that's like our psyche. That's like our life. Here is a Turcoman painting. I just love this. It's like the painting is going out of the frame. And there's animals in there, and there's spiritual and flowers, and there's faces in there. This presentation will be a little bit like a Turcoman painting. So I have given umpteen corporate presentations, and you start with a thing, and you go here to that point, and here to the. And I'm going to jump all over in this presentation. I love wines. I love to go to the wine country. And San Ynez Valley is terrific. Go up to Paso Robles. They have great red wines there. And, of course, Oregon. Their Pinots are getting better. And, and, of course, Napa. And look at the wine casks there, new wine casks. But look at the wine casks very carefully. This is part of my day job. Those are not wine casks. Those are 1,700-ton containers filled with VX nerve agent. And as Diana alluded to, this stuff is the devil in a can. You cannot let this out. This is the most horrible stuff ever invented. VX nerve agent is the most toxic and rapidly acting of the known chemical warfare agents. VX is odorless and tasteless. It's an oily liquid that's amber in color and very slow to evaporate like motor oil. If it gets out, it's like motor oil. It doesn't go anywhere. It produces convulsions, paralysis, and respiratory failure. This is the sites across the United States that this is stockpiled in. You can see Oregon, Utah, Colorado, Arkansas, Alabama, Kentucky. We have active plants there. My company builds these plants to dismantle this stuff. The brown, which is Indiana, Maryland, and Johnston Island off of Hawaii, we've completed the work there. And we're getting close in a lot of the states. We have about 3 more states with plants that we're still building. That shows where we are. We're about 80% done with the neutralizing this stuff in the United States. But I've got to show you something, because this is stunning. When I first saw it, I went, oh my God. This is one of the sites in Utah. Okay, you see that warhead up there? It's got balls with these things. And it goes out and it just scatters them all over. M55 rockets, 28,945 at this one site. What-eye bombs, 888. These are 105 millimeter cartridges and projectiles, 679,000 of them. They're all in these pallets. You can see the men in the suits. There's mines, there's rockets, there's ton containers at this site. And it's horrible stuff. The engineering is really intense in order to get rid of this, because you can't get anywhere near it. We use robots that actually take this stuff apart, drill out the explosives, drill out the VX nerve agent and so forth, and it goes into a plant that looks like that. And my guys design these plants, they design the process and so forth. Really, I'm blown away. I'm the vice president of a whole group of guys who are they're amazing. They're just amazing. They're quiet, and they just work, and they do this. They do this kind of work. And in many, many other areas, we have 1,700 projects going on at one time. And it's amazing when you get a group of people who are dedicated and focused, what they can do. So that's the plant. You see that red piping? That's if you have a spill, that red piping sucks all that, any VX out, and sends it to an incinerator. This is Russia. We have 30,000 metric tons. They have 40,000 metric tons. And you see that yellow part of the pie up there? That's all VX nerve agent. And that's a plant that we're helping the Russians build. We're managing and helping them with the top technology. They're about half finished. We're about 80% complete on this. Now, these suits, you see the man standing with his back to the suit? They don't zip them up. They have flaps, and they step into the machine, and the machine heats up the flaps so they're sealed into the suits to go work in the sites when you have to do maintenance. So I'm at one of the sites, and getting into the site is more difficult than into a maximum security prison. And I had, you have to wear these badges and so forth, and on the back of the badge were instructions, and I put them up to the right here. And I took a look at this, and I thought, I've never seen anything like this. I have to make a copy of this. So on the first part of this, they have this horn that sounds. Okay, let me turn this up. Did you hear that horn? Yeah. A little bit? That horn sounds, and it sounds out in the towns around there and in the facility. And if it's 2 blasts, it's a test. If it's 3 blasts, 3 times, it's all clear. You see, 4 blasts is hazardous substance release. 6 blasts is VX alert. Something's happened, the VX is out. 7 is tornado. 8 is civil attack warning. And this last one, I couldn't believe it. Pam, could you read what that says, where the arrow is real loud?
Anybody have glasses?
Hand it to Steve. Nobody can read.
Accelerate. Accidental nuclear missile launch.
Accidental nuclear missile launch. Now, I thought they were kidding, but I realized they weren't. How do you accidentally launch a nuclear missile? I mean, it's like, and as I walk through these plants, I realized that what this is bottled fear. All this nerve agent and all that, we're stockpiling it, the Russians are, and so this is bottled fear. That's what it is. And if you can imagine being in that little town and you hear this buzzer going off. Is that microphone on, by the way? Okay, good. Well, it gets up to 6, you're going to be worried, and at about 9, accidental, missile launch. My God. I have 5 oak trees on my property. This is Turkoman-style presentation. And these are 100-year-old oak trees. And so I was sitting there one day, and I'm looking up at this oak tree, and it just goes up forever. I thought, I've got to get to the top of this oak tree. So I went, and I got one of those carpenter's tapes that are pretty wide that you can kind of go out like that and it sticks out. So I went to the tree, and I went like this to the first place where there was a split, a crotch in the tree, and I measured it, and I went and I built a ladder. And I came and I put the ladder up to that point. And then I went up there and I'd sit. I'd look around and go, okay, where does this go next? And I'd take the tape measure, and I'd go back down, and I built another ladder. I did this over months. Sitting up there, looking at the tree, and then I go, I think it needs to go over here. So I go over there. Now I'm up there quite a ways now, and I have to build a catwalk to get to the other side. So it's like my wife, she's, what are you doing up there? And I've got these ropes and pulleys, and I'm hauling this catwalk up, and I'm keeping myself linked in so I can't fall, trying to make it as safe as possible, and I built these catwalks and so forth. So here's my oak tree. There's the start of the first ladder. Can you see that in the back somewhat? Yeah. Good. So that's the first ladder. That's the catwalk. This is before I put all the sides on it, because you had to go across it. I had a rope, so again, I was linked in always linked in. So that's the catwalk. I hauled this Buddha up there, and he weighs about, I don't know, but he is big. So then I had to put camouflage netting because the neighbors were starting to see. And one day, when I had actually got to the top, I was standing up on the top of the tree, and I was like looking around, and I looked down, and there were people starting to form in the street below because there was a man standing at the top of a tree. So I went, I gotta hide this from the neighbors. So I went out and I got all this camouflage netting and so forth. So this is the first level that the Buddha's on. And every level is 6 foot 2 inches high, which is my height. I can stand up there. Anyone I bring up there is usually shorter, so no problem. So I hauled the stairs up, made new stairs, put in a hatch. That's going up. This is the second level. I have a chair and so we're up there. And then I made new stairs because I still wasn't at the top of the tree. So I hauled those stairs up and put those up, and now I was at the top of the tree. And those are 2-story houses that I'm looking down on. So I figure it's got to be at least 50 feet high, maybe higher. There's the mountains to the north. I'll come back to this in a minute. I want to talk about alchemy for a second. Carl Jung, towards the end of his life, dove into alchemy because he realized what alchemy was. Even though it started out trying to change lead into gold as a physical process, he realized this was really a psychological process. And actually, the alchemy plates changed as it went along. So, what's in alchemy? The theme of death and rebirth, the theme of descent into the underworld and return, the theme of struggle with a superhuman adversary, a dragon, a serpent, a monster, a theme of a journey and a quest for a treasure, theme of transformation, the theme of a sacred marriage, the theme of birth of the divine child. How rich is that? How rich is that? I mean, any one of those. And remember the hero's journey we saw in the beginning? This is alchemy. It's all right here also. These are archetypal patterns that we are lucky enough, if we're aware even a little bit, to step forward and take this journey. These are some plates from the Splendor Solis. There are many, many plates. You can see the angel working with the person coming out of the muck there. And, of course, there's the dark sun, which is underneath, working in the unconscious world. There's also a new sun that's rising, but you notice it's rising over an area that's been charred. So it's a new sun rising, but that's kind of Act 3. A lot of us have been through things, and that landscape is charred a little bit. And yet there's all new growth happening. So there's this wisdom that we have. It also includes the rescue of the anima and animus, the process of transformation, the death of the old king and queen, which is the old consciousness, and the birth of the young king and queen, which is the new consciousness. Formation of the hermaphrodite, which is the union of the two natures, which is where it ultimately leads, as each person has that animus or anima. If you're female, you're going to have the male part. If you're male, the female part. You work with that, and then they merge as ultimately the hermaphrodite, the philosopher's stone, and then what Jung calls the unus mundus, the unified reality from which everything emerges and returns. If that's not the Tao, I don't know what is. If that's not the Ein Sof from the tree of life, I don't know what is. You know, that isn't God in the groundless state. all of this just, it corroborates itself. And in the most beautiful way, here's some more plates. You can see the old king and the young king and the masculine and the feminine and the hermaphrodite and so on. So I'm going to take just one of the plates and break it down a little bit. This is one of my favorite ones. It's called the philosophical tree. Now there's 4 colors, main colors in the alchemical process. There's black, which is the lead. That's the stuff that's been hidden away. It's a shadow and so forth. That is brought up to the white, which is the light. It's then cooked with the gold, or yellow, and then the ultimate final color of the integration is red. So you see black and white birds on the top of the tree. And that raven in the center, his head is starting to turn white. You see there's a process there that the raven is now starting to in this plate, start this alchemical process. You see the little, the birds at daybreak, we talked about him. The little man is on the 7th rung of the ladder. That's the 7th initiation. 7 means initiation. You can also think of 7 chakras. He's on the ladder. He's in his black attire. He goes up and down the ladder. So he's going down like into the unconscious, coming up. And you could see the red and white garments on the men there. You're seeing black, white, red, and gold. There's a gold crown at the root of the tree. This is very interesting. It's like the Gaia is the root here, the power. There's a golden spring. Their symbol unites opposites, conscious and unconscious. There are men rushing to battle and women bathing in this one. And the feminine is taking the center stage here. See how the men are off to the side? The fresco in the center is the men are going to battle and so forth. What this is saying is that the feminine is taking the center stage in this process. And as you work it, it works you. So I'm there, and I'm going, why did I build that tree house? My teacher said, as you work this alchemical stuff, it will work you. So I'm going, why did I have this desire to build this ladder to the top of the tree? I was studying these plates. So this stuff works you and it materializes in your life. I'm going to tell you another story, but everybody stand up, raise your hands up, shake out a little bit. Turn around, shake hands, hug somebody next to you. Okay, sit back down. I just want to wake everybody up. That cheesecake. Okay. I went out on my patio one day and I saw this. What? This is a basket weave of bricks, so there's just space. What is the chance of a black crow's feather falling down and sticking in a crack? What's the chance of that? 1 in a million, you know? And so, okay, I'm an engineer, and I'm sitting there, and I'm going, this stuff's too weird. I just don't believe it. But I still went with it. And as I started to study Carl Jung and synchronicity about things happening, what he said was, basically, if it has meaning, meaning's the link. You don't have to worry about other links and cosmic this or that, if it's meaningful. And I had been working with birds in the tree and so forth, that had meaning for me. And I was sitting out there, and I said, I'm going on a journey. I wonder what's going to unfold. So I go back. I had a business trip. To Milwaukee, and I was in Milwaukee, or the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul. I was there. I was born in Duluth, and so I thought, okay, I'm not that far from Duluth. I'm going to drive up there, and I'm going to walk the places I walked as a child, and just take it in. And this is part of Act 3. It's completing the past and recapitulation. You go back and you visit the places, you connect with the people and so forth. So I was on this journey, and as I'm walking, this owl was sitting low. I mean, low in the tree. And he didn't fly away, he's just sitting there. And I went, okay, I'm not sure I believe this, but I continue on. So what I did was I went to my childhood house where I grew up, and I went to a place that was particularly painful for me. I went to this alley that I got beat up really bad by a group of kids, and then I continued to get beat up like every week or every month or something. And I went down that alley, and I just took it in and I made peace with it. And it was like I needed to do that. I needed to physically go to that spot, because when you're young and that happens, and I was going down to make friends with them and I got beat up, that's a big deal. That's a big thing. So I went down there and I went to the old water hole I swam in and so forth, and I was feeling really complete. And so that night I went to this restaurant that was on the edge of Lake Superior. I was sitting there, and I ordered some food, and it was pretty dark. The moon was just starting to come up. There was this huge commotion on the table next to me, and it was just like a lot of talking and a lot of angst and stuff. And I called my little waitress over, and I said, what's going on? She said, someone ran out on the bill. There were 4 young men who were there drinking beer and stuff. They ran out on the bill. And there's a policy, if they run out on the bill, that the girl who's the waitress has to pay for it. And I went, what? And here's this girl, she's probably 17 or something, and she's over there all distraught. And you know, it's one of those points where your spirit tells you what to do, and I could do it or not, but something's saying do it. And I said, tell her not to worry, I'll cover it. I said, I'll pay for it. And I said, and by the way, tell the manager or the owner or whoever thought that up that he ought to be ashamed of himself. So this set all kinds of things off. They talked to the owner, and he said, I'll cover half. And this, so it was like $80. Now my cost was down to 40. But this girl came out in tears, sobbing. And she was just crying. She said, nobody has ever done anything like that for me, ever. How can I repay you back? Can I send you? I said, no, I don't want any of that. Just do something nice for something. She followed me around. She was just sobbing. And I'm sitting there, and I had my camera, and I was trying to take a picture of the moon, and I put the flash on, and the first thing I saw was I'm bathed in red, the final integrative color in the alchemical process. I had gone on this journey. I was bathed in red. Not only was the tablecloth, you can see there, I couldn't see it before, it was so dark. There was a tower that was in red, and she came out and she gave me this free thing for a dinner, and that was in red. And then I watched the moon come up on the bay, and that was in red. And so I went, every now and then, like the veil opens, and something magical happens. And I just laid there, and I opened the window, and I just let the moon bathed me that night. And I walked back transformed, and I went back to work, still thinking, I'm not quite sure if that was... And that's kind of the way this is. It's sort of the way this is. Someone told me that in life, you have your head in this side, there is no magic. And then you have the head over here, there is magic. It's kind of the way it works. I've been with a dream group now for about a year and 3 months. I've logged, as of last night, my 504th dream. 504 dreams. And to me, dreams, and once you start to work with it, are the most incredible, powerful thing, one of the most incredible, powerful things you can do. I was so inspired with it. This is looking from the top down. I made this little sculpture. That's clay. That's the seats that we sit in. The person who shares the dream sits in the little black seat. We have these couches and so forth. And the gentleman who leads it is a Jungian psychologist with a PhD and a specialist in dreams. So we take one dream each time. And I was moved to make a sculpture of this. Anytime you make something like a sculpture or a picture or something, you are taking, you're solidifying it. So I was so moved with everybody's dreams, because when a dream comes up, their dream is your dream. I made images of everybody's dream. They're the ones that hit me the most. To the right, you can see those black dogs. I'm going to talk about those in a second. In fact, I've got it blown up a little bit to talk about that. But I made that, and every night that we do the dream work, we set that in the middle. And the little light there works, which is a candle. He lights the candle, I flick on the dream, little dream light, and away we go. And I put this, basically a galaxy in the center, because I'm telling you, we sit around in a circle, and once this thing starts, it's like there's a galaxy behind us. It's that open. It's just like the walls fall away, and we go into this shared dreamland. And there's a lot of hurt and a lot of work when you get 6 adults who've gone through a lot in life. This is what I've learned so far, and these are pretty much my observations. First, you have to learn the language of dreams. They won't make sense at first. Then, and most important, you got to do the work. You actually have to work at this. If you don't work at it, forget it. As you do this, your psyche gives you more. Our psyche is, we have a conscious, we have an unconscious, we have a collective, we have a it goes on and on. We only see this slice in the conscious. So as you do this, your conscious will give you more. Pre-verbal images, the pre-verbal rises to images and symbols. A lot of times I'll wake up, I will have this pre-verbal feeling. It hasn't even bubbled up into a symbol or image yet. As you become more conscious of what that message is, you'll go to the next layer. You'll go deeper. It brings conflicting energy patterns onto the same field. The dreams will repeat from many different angles till you get it. It's like and what happens is a landscape, I'll call it a dreamscape, appears. If you keep track of the dreams, you'll start to see them cluster around certain themes. And then each one in that cluster will tell you more and more about. And the idea is once it's brought to the conscious, the energy is released. There's just more and more available. And the dreams evolve as you pay attention to them. They start to evolve. These are a few of the images. The one in the upper left, this lady had a 4-headed mushroom, and she never had done any work with any kind of mushrooms. And she said one was red with little white things on the top. That's the famous Amanita muscaria. I mean, it's used by the Russian shamans. She'd never, and yet that was in her dream. The one on the right, the 2 Saluki dogs, they were black dogs, kind of indicating this work starting. And the woman was really distraught. She loved the Salukis, and there's this shard, glass shard. You see it in the heart there? Glass shard in the heart. And what we found out was that was her heart. The dog, she was so in tune with the dogs that was her heart. That there's a picture of the Last Supper there, and then there's another picture with the Last Supper that's all dark and Christ is missing. So that started a whole set of work for this woman. Another lady was trying to leave this island for the big city and got washed back and washed up on the rocks. Dreams as an advisor. I'm watching the time. I'm in this corporation. You get there on time. Nobody ever comes late to any meeting. It's amazing. And you finish on time. So, I'm going to be glad to get out of that. So I had a situation this last year. I had a job offer with twice the responsibility in a company with twice the size, great salary and bonuses, stock. I could pick where I wanted to live in any one of 5 major cities. And the interviews were going great. It was a perfect fit. They said, you are exactly what we're looking for. We want to send you to Washington, D.C. to start to interview with the presidents and top executive managers and stuff. And I was pretty excited about this. This is like a big opening and just something new. I go to bed, and over the next night, 3 nights, I had these dreams. First one, I'm in a cafeteria and these men are catering to me, trying to sell me all this different food. Follow-on dream, there's elevator with 2 sets of doors. They can't close the doors. And the buttons are all confusing, and I'm going, gee, I really prefer the elevator at my work. Next one, I do paragliding, used to. I'm up on the top of a mountain with my paraglide sail up, and there's no wind. There's no updraft. You cannot paraglide until you have a 10-knot wind coming up the hill. So these are all things you go, well, what does this mean? What is it connected to? Another one, there was a house with rotted eaves. I could fix it, but all the eaves around the house were rotted. And this one really did it, the last 2. I'm on the top floor of this building, and there are these deep drains. And I've got my tools. I can fix the drains, but they're loaded with crud. And the sinks are broken. When you turn on the water, it comes out below. What they're not telling me is this company's a mess, and they're looking for someone to parachute in and clean the whole thing up. And the final one, pay attention to animals in dreams. They are really important. There's a little bulldog. I'm trying to take him for a walk. He's on the porch, and I can't move him. You ever tried to pull a dog that doesn't want to go? Like a little bulldog? He won't come off the porch. And I went, bang, 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 bang. I'm not taking the job. If I had taken the job, I wouldn't be here tonight. Plus, it was a mess. I kind of found out, sort of roundabout and so forth, that that's what was going on behind the scene. So your psyche in these dreams can be an advisor to you. Because it's like, not only do you have your conscious mind, you have everything else working at the same time. So, we have these 3 levels. Let the beauty we love be what we do. There are hundreds of ways to kneel and kiss the ground. I want to ask Diana to come up and just read a little bit of poetry for us.
I'll do it by heart.
Okay. By heart.
I started memorizing, I guess I should be at the microphone, shouldn't I? Sorry. Okay. I started memorizing a poem every week at the beginning of the year, and it became mantra to me. And so I find now that it's become part of my bones. So when I wake up in the morning or if I'm standing in line, I just know these poems by heart. The one I'm going to start with is called Love After Love by Derek Walcott. And it really speaks to what we're talking about here tonight. And it speaks to Act 3 completely. The time will come when with elation you will greet yourself arriving at your own door. And each will smile at the other's welcome and say, "Sit here, eat. Give wine, give bread, give back your heart to itself, to the stranger who has loved you all your life, whom you ignored for another, who knows you by heart. Take down the love letters from the bookshelf, the photographs, the desperate notes. Peel your own image from the mirror. Sit. Feast on your life." Thank you. Thank you. I always have to sit at the end of a poem and just kind of take it in. The next one is a fragment from a poem that really takes me right out of my chair. It's written by Mary Oliver. I think people who write poetry that is so exquisite, they're really enlightened people, or they're having an enlightened moment anyway, and it's contagious. So she has a poem that starts, it's called Messenger. And this poem starts, "My work is loving the world." And then she talks about the clam and the leavening yeast and the blue plum and all these things that we see in nature and so on. But the part that really gets me, she says, "Are my boots old? Is my coat torn? Am I no longer young and still not half perfect? Let me keep my mind on what matters, which is my work, which is mostly standing still and learning to be astonished." Then Hafez, his poems are my favorite to memorize. They're quite short usually, that helps. But he was a 13th century mystic, very enlightened, and he has wonderful humor and joy that is so contagious. And he always makes me laugh, which helps a lot too. This one is called "Without Brushing My Hair." "The closer I get to you, beloved, the more I can see it's just you and me alone in this world. I hear a knock at the door. Who else could it be? So I rush without brushing my hair. For too many nights I have begged for your return. And what is the use of vanity at this late hour, at this divine season that has come to my folded knees? If your love letters are true, dear God, I will surrender myself to who you keep saying I am." And finally, this is one that I really do say in bed every morning. Usually I wake up a little bit before Ted, and so this is the one that just gets me all juiced to get up and have a wonderful day. And this is called "Welcome Morning." It's by Anne Sexton. "There is joy in all. In the hair I brush each morning, in the cannon towel newly washed I rub my body with each morning, in the chapel of eggs I cook each morning, in the outcry of the kettle that heats my coffee each morning, in the spoon and the chair that cry out, 'Hello there, Anne,' each morning. In the Godhead of the table, I set my silver plate cup upon each morning. All this is God, right here in my pea green house. And I mean, though often forget to give thanks, to faint down by the kitchen table in a prayer of rejoicing, while the holy birds at the kitchen window tap into their marriage of seeds. So while I think of it, let me paint a thank you on my palm for this God, this laughter of the morning, lest it go unspoken. The joy that isn't shared, I've heard, dies young."
There's a part in the alchemical process and also in the hero's journey where you come up against some sort of struggle. It can be a crisis, a physical crisis, one at work or whatever, and the dragon's there. And you reach a decision point. I'm going to just share a couple quick ones. At that decision point, you can go one way or another. And this was a personal one I had. I was just getting ready to get my private airplane pilot's license. And you have to do these maneuvers called stalls. And the power on stall is you put full power on the airplane and you raise it till it falls out of the sky. And you practice that over and over again. So if it happens on takeoff, you know how to get out of that. So I was doing power off stalls, and I unintentionally, the plane entered a spin. The spin is one of the scariest things for a pilot. It's nicknamed the graveyard spiral. The plane starts to go down, and it's like corkscrewing, and you're losing your bearings, and you have to do a number of things correct to get out of it. And it was a decision point for me. I got the plane out of it, and it's the first time I can ever remember having a cold sweat. There was sweat on me, and it was cold. And I wanted to go back and land the plane and get out and walk away, and that was it. And I was right at that decision point. And I don't know how this happened. I turned the plane around, and I went to the north, and I did a power on stall. I turned the plane, I went to the south, I did a power on stall. I went to the east, I did a power on stall. I went to the west, I did a power on stall, and I took the plane back. Something came in, and I did all 4 directions, and I took the plane back. Subsequent to that, I took aerobatic training where I was doing loops and cubinates and snap rolls, and we practiced precision spirals, 1, 2, and 3, and then bringing them out facing a certain direction. So I got really good at that. But I never would have done that, and then I went on to helicopter training and got a commercial pilot's license in helicopters, and all this whole world opened up for me. But it was at that decision point. I just want to say quickly, I've always been interested in mastery. You never really master something, but it's always there to go deeper and get better and better at. In Act 3, mastery can come up where we move into a state of amazing use of time. I want you to watch this. It's an air show, and this gentleman, you notice what happened. He's lost his wing. This plane is coming down now into this terrible spiral with one wing. Almost, impossible to get out of. And so here he comes around with one wing. That is mastery. And it's like in the martial arts and so forth. When you train at something enough, I'll guarantee you he wasn't scared. He didn't have time to be scared. It was all, he and the machine were one. He landed a plane with one wing. I started Doce Paris Eskrima 4 years ago. And I started to train in the evenings with an 8th degree master in the Filipino section of Los Angeles. And there I was, 60 years old, and training at night. And it was really hard, a lot of hard work. And as I went on and trained, I started to enter tournaments. Now, I'm the grandfather in these tournaments. Everybody is in their 20s and 30s, maybe 40s, but hardly more than that. So I was entering tournaments, and I really got some great medals because there weren't a lot of people who were above 40 to fight. But I walked into this one tournament, and I saw this guy who was an absolute monster. And I thought, geez, who's he, and who's going to have to fight him? And he looked like this. He actually has a skull and crossbones on his pants there. And you can see he's got tattoos on his arms and his neck and so forth. And they called his name and they called my name. And I thought, great, have you seen the Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior? I am now fighting Lord Humongous. And actually, I won the match, not by any great skill of mine. Somehow I knocked, or he dropped his eskrima stick twice and was disqualified. So I got out of that. Here's just a quick image of... No, that's not me. I'm slower than that. You can see the speed at which they fight. It's a Filipino art, and it's great. I've got about one more year, and I'll make black, and that'll be my 5th and final black belt in different art forms. And then I'm going, that's it. I still teach. I teach at 6 a.m., and I've got a 15 and a 16-year-old boy, and I get a chance to teach them. It was like grace coming in the door. The father brought them to me, and I have these 2 young men I'm teaching how to fight, and my other people in my class. And it's like, it's a rite of passage. They're both so soft and so forth. And we get to turn them into men judiciously, like to how to use their power and so forth. I just love it. I've never enjoyed teaching more. And again, that's Act 3, the wisdom part and being able to share. In martial arts, there's a reflex movement. I want to show you this a little bit. It's people reacting to situations. You move away from danger.